All right. It's letting me continue. I have no idea what just happened there. Absolutely no idea. But we're back. Whatever. Technology, not my job. My job is just to use it, not not to try to understand it. So I don't understand, but welcome back if you're back. Hopefully you're back. Okay. I'm going to introduce Crystal again. Crystal Barron is a voice coach, body worker, singing voice specialist, and a professional singer. Her own vocal journey has been full of twists and turns, including vocal injuries and mindset challenges. The quest to heal her own voice eventually led to the development of a unique integrative teaching style, which she uses today to assist other professional singers and voice users, all voice users, with vocal injury. So put Crystal in the chat for the intro to TRE voiced video. There we go. I knew there was a right word. I'm not flustered. Okay. Linda, yes, we're back, Linda. I'm glad you're glad we're back. I have no idea what happened, Linda, but here we are. And welcome, Crystal.
Hi.
Hi, sorry for that glitch. I mean, I'm sorry I didn't do it, but I'm sorry that it happened.
Yeah, well, that's life, right? Unexpected adventures always.
Life on the interweb. Yes,
Yeah.
life in general. You're right.
Yes. Well, and I was just thinking how perfect, because this is an example of how you think that it's going to go one way and then it goes sideways, and then our nervous system gets dysregulated and we're like and we can't do anything. Right? Like we get stuck for a second. And
Yes.
then what we hope is that as things calm down, then we can get back to our regularly scheduled program as we are.
Phew.
So thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Well, I'm so glad you were able to make the time, because you and I have had many a talk about what we do, because it's very similar in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And
yes.
we geek out together, don't we?
Yes. Yes. You are my geekiest. I love it so much. The only thing that bothers me is that we don't have more time to just sit around and talk about all the intersections, because there just aren't enough hours in the day for us to explore this shared profound love of the science behind the voice.
Yes, but we're not just doing science behind the voice. We're doing science plus soul.
Right.
And that's why I love talking to you so much, because we love our science stuff, but we also are so deeply in touch with the humanity of the voice process.
Exactly.
I just put that sentence together as I was saying it, and it probably wasn't perfect, but you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not just about a computer code. At some point it transforms into art and beauty and the intangibles that are hard to measure in a laboratory environment.
Yeah, and that are really they are 100% subjective.
Yeah. But we know when it's there. We know when it's right.
Right. And we know when it matters to us. We know when we have sung our own song, and when we're just making the singing noise, which I used to call it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, Crystal, integrative voice teacher. Talk to me. What does it mean?
Well, so I came up through the pipeline, as many of us do, the Western classical pipeline, where I said, I want to be a singer in 1980, whatever. And so I'm going to go to college and I'm going to be a singer because that sounds awesome. So I signed up to be vocal performance, not realizing that at that time, and specifically in the school that I went to, that meant Western classical. And if you were really lucky and your teacher was very forward thinking, you might be able to do a Rodgers and Hammerstein song as your as your encore in your senior recital. Many new day, right? So, so I started it on this unintentional journey of Western classical, and I was like, well, this is, I guess, whatever. I think I was not as evolved as you were in your story, where you were like, no, no, why are you making me do this? I just was just a good little sheep saying, all
I
right,
yeah, but I was saying no, don't do this, but while I was doing it like a good little sheep.
yeah, yeah.
So not
Well,
not evolved, just yeah. Just
well,
confused. I would say confused would be a good word.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, I mean, one of the things that I admire the most about you, though, is as you were saying when we were talking before, your contrarianism.
A little bit.
Like, that's a fabulous. I mean, I love that you don't just take the status quo for just to get along. That's such an important thing, as humans, but also as a teacher, and as I mean, just everything as an artist. If we believed things just because our teachers told us, that's perpetuating all sorts of stuff that shouldn't be perpetuated. We have to challenge, we have to fight back, we have to be able to go, no, that's BS, because we're on live. I can't
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
what I really want to say,
Yeah.
right? But
Well,
I
I
love
mean,
that about you.
thank you. I mean, that's nice, but I think you're giving me too much credit because really, I think what I'm trying to do, and I think you're trying to do this too, which is why I'm going to take a moment to say this, is that I really understand the world of the band singer, the microphone singer. That's where I have lived my whole professional life. And I get that world. And I also get the world of the college educated person, the pipeline singer. So what I'm trying to do is not so much buck the system of the pipeline situation, is just inform the people who tend to be in power in voice education about the reality of the 90% of the singers who are out there actually making a living. And I try to, so I'm more about like informing them in a way that they can hear this is another world. Like,
Right, right.
you
And
know,
I agree with you 100%.
I know you do.
What I'm saying is, if you hadn't had that whole, like, but wait, I don't like this. But
Right,
wait, this isn't
right.
right. That
Fair.
little kernel of question everything,
Right.
you wouldn't be where you are today.
That's true.
And you wouldn't be leading the way into the future for other voice teachers who, just like you and I, were good little sheep.
We're good little,
But
but
we were being led down a path that wasn't really our heart and our destiny.
and right, most of the singers. Once in a while, you have a singer who's like, I love classical singing more than anything.
And good for them. That's
Right?
great.
Awesome, right? But they are a minority and all of the education is for them. But that's not what we're talking about. But I would like to direct that back at you a little
Back to
bit.
you.
I mean, you're complimenting me, but you had a very similar experience
I did.
where
I
you were
did.
like, I was a good little sheep, and look, this is, and it brought me to a place I didn't want to be.
It did. And my voice was, it was a problem child. My voice had so many issues, and I was trying to do the things that the good little sheep should be doing in my training, and not getting the results that anyone expected. And there was a lot of shame around that. There was a lot of, well, you just need to practice harder, you're not listening, you're not paying attention, you need to spend more time in the practice rooms. And to a young student, I went to college at 16 because that sounded like fun at the time, but that's another story for another day. As a young student, I really was trying to be a good student. I was really wanting to do this, and I wasn't getting the results. And it started me on this, like, really trying to think, what is wrong with me? Why am I the problem, right? Which eventually evolved into, maybe there's something that my teachers, as well-meaning as they were, maybe there's something that they're missing. because I'm pretty smart. I mean, I get good grades. I went to college at 16, so
Yeah, yeah, you're pretty. I think we all know you're really smart.
so
Yeah,
it's like I was like, why am
that's
I so
scary.
dumb when it comes to singing when I'm a good student in other areas? And so that made me start to tap in a little bit more into this questioning. Um, and so I started to ask questions that my teachers couldn't answer, frankly. They just couldn't answer. They're like, I don't know. And they didn't seem to think like it was relevant, but in my heart, as our as our mentor says, in my nuggets, I felt it in my nuggets that there was something else going on with my voice. And that started me on this journey of I just started digging through the literature, self-study. And I came across yeah, and that's another thing we share in common. You are how you're always like, and you're constantly reading articles. I'm so jealous that I have not yet figured out my own life structure to be able to sit down and just like digest and read the articles and things. I just have to throw that in there.
Yeah, it's a problem for me.
Oh, but it's a great problem to have. It's a
Uh,
great problem to have. But anyway, so when getting my master's degree, I wanted to do my thesis on acid reflux and how it affects singers. And this is back in 2002, 2003. And they didn't have a single faculty member that understood the health aspect of the voice and how allergies and acid reflux and GERD and things like that would impact the voice. This was in 2002, Meredith. I know it seems crazy today, but back then, like it wasn't a thing. And so my first thesis, they're like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to pick a second one because we don't have anyone that can support your thesis.
gosh.
Right? So, and this was a pretty good school. I mean, it wasn't, like the top 80, top, but it was a pretty good school. And so I was like, well, that sucks, but I guess I'll do it on Sondheim, who I love Sondheim. So I did Sondheim because they let me do that. They were very progressive in that they let me do Sondheim in my master's.
Sondheim, the rock star.
Woo! Right, exactly. And they let me do half of my
Oh my God.
recital. Half of it was the traditional Western classical, and then I came back and I did the second half as I think it was a 40-minute cabaret. And it was all musical theater and a
That's
lot of Sondheim.
like so dangerous. So,
So edgy, so edgy.
so edgy.
Yeah, but that's kind of what set me on this journey of just
Okay.
exploring. I'm like, okay, so then I got, Sadeloff's books and I just started reading them
So
and
what are the things you work with now? Like
okay,
what are the modalities that you
yes.
so now you're quite a bit, you're 20 years down the road.
20 years down the road. So I started
So
with the
you've
vocal health.
integrated all these modalities.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of certifications. So I started with vocal health and then my voice was still jacked up. So I was like, okay, well, and I felt like stuck. My breath was just stuck. So I started looking more into breathing, and that's how I found MDH Breathing Coordination. And I now have an advanced certification in that, which is pretty awesome. And I use that in literally every session that I teach. I integrate principles of MDH Breathing Coordination because that is what I feel really set me on the path to healing my own voice. And we're talking decades of vocal injury, ongoing nodules, like laryngeal spasm, muscle tension dysphonia,
Very.
just chronic issues regardless of how well I took care of my voice, I was still having issues. So when I figured out, oh, I was breathing all wrong, and that's another story too, because I'm not saying there's one size fits all breathing. It's that for my body,
Right.
I was doing it all wrong because I was trying to just take the notes that everybody was giving me that were one size fits all, unfortunately. Right. So that kind of started me on the path. And then my voice started to get better. I started to work with other people who had injured voices, and most of them would get better, but some of them didn't. And then I was like, well, why isn't this working? So now I was more familiar with this. Well, let's just figure out, it must be that I'm missing something else. And then that led me to, through a colleague of mine who was really starting to do more laryngeal massage, I was like, well, now I have all this body work training, because MDH breathing coordination is not just about standing and breathing. It's a hands-on
Right.
body work method. A lot of overlap with Alexander.
I actually saw, I'm going to interrupt you for a second, but about 5 years ago, I was at a voice teacher conference in Poland, outside of Warsaw. And
Oh,
watched,
Barbara.
I watched Barbara Tanza.
Yes.
You know
She's
Barbara.
she's one of my closest colleagues. I adore Barbara.
I adore, well, who doesn't adore Barbara? It is
She's
impossible not.
phenomenal.
She's just like, I know,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
spirit animal. So
Yeah.
and I watched the person sang, Barbara put him on the table. She did the thing. She did these manipulations on their body. They sang again, totally different. It was extraordinary.
Yeah. And that's what my experience was, but it took me longer because I had so many, like, just things that were just not serving me happening in my body. So
Linda,
is Barbara
who's watching us, is also a Barbara Tanza fan.
Linda? I know who Linda is. Linda's one of my other closest colleagues. And so she's here. I'm preaching to the choir when I'm talking to Linda. So, yeah. So, yeah, MDH breathing coordination is phenomenal. But for some people, it takes a longer time, or it just, like, we would hit a wall. And then that made me go, well, what else is there? There must be something else I'm missing. So that took me into laryngeal massage, which is manipulation of the articulators up here. So of the larynx itself, and then the tongue and the jaw. And that was a game changer in a completely different way. And because with MDH breathing coordination, we don't get up in this area quite as much. And then from that, I was like, well, I might as well go to massage therapy school, because I wonder what else I'm missing. At this point, I was getting a little out of hand. So I went to massage therapy school.
I might as well go to massage therapy school, because
Yeah.
I'm trying to run a studio and I have 4 kids and a husband. What else do I have to do?
I have 500 extra hours to kill this year. Let's do it. So I did that, which was great. And that got me a little further into the anatomy and physiology of just the human body, a little bit of trauma work. But it more than anything just raised my curiosity in other areas. And then after that, I'm like, well, now I need to go back to the voice, because I don't think I really know anything about the voice. Even though I have 2 voice degrees and have been taking lessons for 30 years, I'm like, I know all this stuff about the body, but gosh, I don't understand acoustics at all. Formants, I've studied them a bunch. They're like, I don't know, what are formants, right? So then I went back into acoustics and vocology, and this time it made sense to me. And I was able to actually apply it in ways that just delight me now. But, I remember crying over formants when I was in college, because I'm like, what is this? This is so weird. But so I did that. And, and at every stage, I'm like, okay, now it's always my students. Like, I'll be like, this is working, except for this one person. Why isn't it working with you? And because of my own experience of my teachers, not intentionally, but blaming me for not getting better, that's something that I've always vowed to never do with my students. Not go, well, just keep practicing. You just need to practice harder.
Right.
That makes me want to cuss too. So every time I hit a wall, I'm like, okay, there's got to be something else. Let's dig more into their lived experience. Because one of my core beliefs as a teacher is that you can't separate the singer from their life experience and what they have lived. We take it with us, right? And so then I just start pulling the threads and see where it goes. And that's what then has led me to my latest thing, which is TRE, tension and trauma release exercises. Because what I found is there are some folks who you can give them all the things and there's still something. Like they just can't engage with the material for whatever reason in the way that you think that they are capable of.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they're lazy,
Mm-hmm.
not because they don't care, but because there's something literally blocking them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's then when I turned to TRE. And now I kind of use TRE with everybody because it's kind of been a game changer in a whole new way
Can
until the next thing comes along.
can you talk a little bit about TRE?
Sure. So TRE was it's a bodywork method. This is hands off though. I do not have to touch anyone, which is great because I can do this. I do this on Zoom usually all over the world, and it it gets to the root of the nervous system. What's preventing your body from fully engaging in whatever activity you have. We've all experienced trauma, of course, because we're humans. um, a well-regulated nervous system will have an experience like what happened to us at the beginning, where we're like, and we feel a little dysregulated for a few seconds, where we're like, what's my name? What happens next? Ah, and then after 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 5 seconds, depending on, the event, our nervous system then starts to settle back down and we can engage with each other. I can hear you. I can process what you're saying. You can hear me and process what I'm saying. Hopefully you're feeling fully present in your body. Hopefully I'm feeling fully present in my body. That's a well-regulated nervous system. And that's what we need in order to have social connection, in order to build healthy relationships, in order to learn, in order to create art, in order to be creative and expressive. If we are not able to get into that part of our, it's a parasympathetic state of the autonomic nervous system, we are always guarded and we're in this low grade fight or flight, which manifests as anxiety, performance or otherwise, this sense of not being able to fully connect to people. And it also prevents us from really hearing and integrating whatever it is that we're experiencing. And that affects our ability to learn
Hmm.
or do anything to the fullest extent. So what TRE does, it's some very simple exercises that anybody can do literally. Yes, interoceptive connection. Thank you, Linda. It allows us to, I call it taking out the trash for the nervous system, where all of the pent up tension, holding, bracing patterns, we literally shake them out. And it's very, very simple and gentle. And part of the process is I teach you how to self-regulate as you go as a certified provider. And then after you do it a few times with me, then you do it as part of your regular self-care routine. And what this does is it just helps the body come back down into that parasympathetic state. So we're literally like, I'm holding your hand while you walk down the stairs back into that more grounded, more present place. And it's really been a huge game changer for a lot of my students, whether they have vocal injury or not. It just helps you feel more present. The nervy places in your voice where you're like, I don't know if this is going to be here for me.
So
You
what do
start
you observe from them? What do you observe from them? What's the difference in their singing or their experience of their singing?
with the singers.
Yeah.
They're more able to be present in their own body, which will then allow them to self-assess better, which, as you and I know, it's all about the interoception, as Linda just said. It, instead of them just trying to check the boxes of do this and this and this, it allows them to be present in the moment in their experience and to feel what they are supposed to feel, whatever that is, and then to assess it, self-assess, and make adjustments without going into the that we all do as singers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did I have to be more articulate than that, or did that make sense?
I just know I don't know how you would get "Blah" into a research paper, but I'm sure you'd figure it out.
A state of heightened arousal in
There
the
you go.
okay, fight or
Thank you.
flight.
So Linda
So
has another comment. It's magical in that it helps the body complete the circuit that was diverted earlier years ago.
yes, and Linda has experienced TRE with me a handful of times. Linda's also an MDH breathing coordination practitioner, so she's backing us up here. Um, Another really cool thing that I've noticed, and this happens more over time.
Mm,
Uh, well, but everything is kind of cumulative with TRE. Like you might feel, oh, I actually feel more relaxed. I'll get feedback after an immediate session. I'm like the first session, I feel more relaxed. I feel like I just had a good cry, but in a really good way. I feel very grounded and present. I go and I sing and I sound better. This is the best I've ever sounded, but I don't know why.
yeah,
And I go, just go with it.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
question, just go with it. And then over time, I get them more like where I can see that they're really able to focus on stage and off and not have the anxiety, take over. But also chronic tension because this low grade fight or flight that most of us are in all the time, especially in Western society in the 21st century, over time it manifests as chronic jaw tension, neck tension, digestive issues, low back pain, tight hips. Those are the places it tends to show up. And over and then I've also seen, because I have a lot of students that have muscle tension dysphonia, and sometimes for decades they'll come to me with the "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my last hope"
right,
kind of
right,
story, and I'm like, oh, no pressure or
yeah.
anything.
Wait,
And
we
for
have a,
those clients, hmm?
we have a comment, sorry, from Alex. She says, "This is wonderful. So true, you can't separate the voice from the person. It's all there. Has to be seen, heard, and acknowledged." And that is, there, sorry to interrupt you, but that just reminds me of one of the things that I love to tell my pop singers who are not college educated about how in college voice departments they literally refer to someone's singing their voice as the voice. The voice is doing blah blah blah, as though it is somehow separate from the person. Remember that?
Yes,
Oh, the
yes,
voice is a little heavy on the body. Yeah,
yeah.
that thing.
Yeah, no, and for singers, I mean, we know that our voice is our identity. You cannot separate us. It's not like, "Oh, you have a crappy violin, go get a better violin."
Right, which is why the work this is, and that's exactly why I think this is so interesting, especially, I mean, all of it, the MDH breathing but especially the trauma release, um, because our voice is our identity. And
Mhm.
so when it is not reflecting us accurately, we
It
keep, right.
psychology.
It's
Yeah,
more trauma, right? It's like these tiny
absolutely,
little traumas however often it
absolutely.
happens.
Yeah, and there's a phenomenon in the medical community. This is pretty well established where so muscle tension dysphonia is it's a diagnosis of exclusion, meaning there's nothing else wrong with your voice, but you have lots of tension in your singing. So you have muscle tension dysphonia. There's nothing organic wrong. It used to be that they would say it's psychosomatic, it's just you're crazy, get over it, kind of thing. But now they are seeing that it's multifactorial, and almost always it's not just because you have bad technique, because that's just like not even a thing. Like if you are able to make sound, it's you're making sound. There are some sounds that are easier to sustain than others, but it's not like you have good technique or bad technique. And if you have good technique, you will not ever have muscle tension dysphonia. That is a myth. That is a fairy tale. But what we now are understanding much better is that with muscle tension dysphonia, it is almost always multifactorial, meaning high vocal load, meaning you are a vocal professional, you are a singing teacher, you are a teacher, you are a professional singer, you're a Broadway singer who has to do 8 shows a week instead of our opera colleagues that only have to do 3 or 4, right? I don't know. I
Or
don't live
you're
in
a
that world.
classroom teacher.
Right, a classroom teacher where you are using your voice 6, 7, 8 hours a day, sometimes at elevated volumes. So that already puts you in a higher risk category. But then often, like extremely often, there is also some sort of stressful life circumstance. It can be an ongoing low grade over time, or it can be an event. So it can be finances are, I lost my job and I'm going to get thrown out of my house. That would be an example of like an acute event, and the stress surrounding that event could be enough to then trigger this. It usually doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it does. It did for me at one point where I woke up and I had no voice one day. I had muscle tension dysphonia multiple times. Some was more of this chronic, and others was more like something happened and now I don't have a voice. Huh,
Oh my God.
interesting. And stress, of course, affects our acid reflux. So that's usually part of the mix as well. So then you have to add in, so then the chronic would be more like, I'm not thriving. This isn't fun. Why is my teacher making me feel bad every time I go to class?
Okay.
Saying I'm not trying hard enough. I just have to try harder. That is one example. I'm not saying that voice
Your
teachers
example.
experience tension dysphonia,
Right.
but it does happen. It could be an abusive relationship that you're in. It could be toxic coworkers. It could be anything that is like having a child who is special needs that's very hard to manage. That is a stressful, ongoing life experience. And so that can lead to it. Once you have muscle tension dysphonia, the anxiety surrounding that, especially when you are a professional voice user, is what can then make it, often it can make it go into years and decades, because the fear of the injury itself is trauma.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
And so I'm never going to get
Amen
better.
for
I'm
me
never going
on
to get
that.
my voice
Yep.
back. I've gone through speech therapy 3 times and it's not
Yep.
working for me. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? And so it's like it becomes this
Yep.
vicious cycle of the body just living in a constant state of hyperarousal. And so that's what I found. Right now I have 2 clients that have come to me that both had decades long muscle tension dysphonia and went to all the specialists, and they were like, they just randomly came upon me and like, let's give it another try, and not expecting any kind of good results at all. And the combination of MDH breathing coordination, laryngeal massage, and TRE has helped both of them really make significant progress. After like, we're talking like 30 years for one,
Wow. Oh, that poor girl.
35 for the other.
I feel for her. Well, Leslie Stevens popped up in the chat to say
Oh, hi, Leslie.
she said you do access the force, Crystal.
Leslie, you're so sweet. Thank
And
you.
she's talking about how she says, um, I had the experience of, I'm just going to read it because it'll cover up the whole screen. I had the experience of going right from a session with you to an audition, and I sounded better than and had a more easeful experience than any time in recent memory or ever. Thank you.
Leslie,
He said.
so happy to be part of that for you.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, this is all just me blundering along, trying to figure stuff out. Another piece that we haven't really addressed is the like neurodivergent brain.
Okay, well, we're going to have to schedule another one for that because we're
Yeah,
at about 45 minutes now, so we should
I
probably
know.
lock it
I know.
down. But Because you and I could
we could go on for hours and hours
do
and
the
hours.
3-hour Facebook Live, no problem.
Yeah. I mean,
I
that's
know.
a thing, right?
It is a thing. People do that. They do marathon lives,
Yeah,
but
why
we
not?
won't do that
We should
today. But
have
we'll come back. But I would love to come back and talk about what you know about, neurodivergency.
well, I mean, this is my latest thing, is the trauma of how it affects the voice. So I could go on for days just about that,
That's
So we could definitely dig into that.
yeah.
And I would love to be able to come back and talk more and hear your perspective on things, because truly no one knows the brain like you know the brain, especially in popular music styles. Like
Okay, I'll take that. I can't take the other one because there are people who are so who on whose work I depend to learn more.
of course, but you have a unique skill set.
I
Just
have
like I have my little Frankenstein
yeah,
integrative modalities, but you are, I mean, in the world of popular music,
popular music.
evidence-based neuroscience, like you're the bomb.
I'm the nerd. I
You're
am the nerd.
the nerdiest neuroscience nerd
I,
there ever was,
yes, I
rolling down the river, and I love it so much.
well, we will have. Well, you know what? It's almost 2023. You'll come back. You'll come back. We'll talk more.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah.
And I should have you on my page because I need to start doing lives again.
Oh, fun. Okay, great.
That's fun.
Thank you for being here with us today,
Of course,
Crystal.
my
We
pleasure.
learned a lot. It was so interesting.
Yay, I'm so glad. Yeah.
And Linda says, we have more. We have more people saying hi to you. Leslie says, bless the art science nerds who teach. That's what Leslie says.
Leslie is also firmly in that category too.
Yay, Leslie. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. And Linda says, that's awesome. And Alex says, thank you. So I love your professional humility, Linda says. So, yeah, so nice. So nice. I'm so glad you were here today, and we will talk again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Smarty Pants.
All right. Okay. Meredith Colby, Neuro Nerd.
Bye.